Our first witness is Dr. Ronald Mortensen. Dr. Mortensen is a retired United States Foreign Service officer. He's been published by the Center of Immigration Studies and writes for Examiner.com. He has researched and written extensively about employment-related child identity theft and was instrumental in the passage of Utah's E-Verify requirement. Dr. Mortensen holds a PhD in political science from the University of Utah. With that, Mr. Mortensen, Dr. Mortensen, we'll start with you.
Thank you. The use of fraudulent documents for employment authorization all too often involves the Social Security numbers of children. And children's numbers are especially valued because they can be used for years without detection. Unfortunately, during those years, children can suffer serious harm. Thus, employment-related document fraud is not a victimless crime. People obtain children's numbers for employment in a variety of ways. Parents use their children's numbers. People steal children's Social Security numbers and then sell them. And still others randomly make up numbers that end up belonging to children. Most often, people just attach the child's Social Security number to their own name rather than using the child's full identity, which includes the full name, date of birth, and Social Security number. And this Social Security number only identity theft, or this is Social Security number only identity theft. And according to a Social Security official, quote, 98% of Social Security related ID theft cases involve people who use their own names but invent or steal their numbers. So given the prevalence of Social Security number only identity theft, a mandatory E-Verify requirement can serve as a strong child protection measure because E-Verify does match the name, date of birth, and Social Security number, which prevents an adult from using his own name with the child's Social Security number for employment purposes. Now, it's important to note that when someone simply makes up a Social Security number and uses it with his own name, there's roughly a 50-50 chance that that number already belongs to someone else, either a child or an adult. However, even if the randomly generated number has not been issued, the Social Security doesn't take it out of the database once it begins to be used. Therefore, at a future date, Social Security may assign that number to a newborn infant. In Utah, based on a 2005 investigation, it was estimated that 20,000 Utah children under age 13 were the victims of employment-related identity fraud, and as many as 50,000 children under age 18 may have had their Social Security numbers used for employment purposes. In addition, Utah's Workforce Services identified 1,626 employers paying wages to the Social Security numbers of children under 13. Most parents didn't even know that their children's identities were being used unless they applied for public assistance and were notified at that time that the child's number may have been compromised. And many of these children had their good names destroyed. Some had their credit ruined. Others had people obtaining medical services using their Social Security numbers, and still others had arrest records attached to their names, and some were even denied critically required Medicaid benefits. E-Verify is an important tool in the battle against employment-related child identity theft because it catches Social Security number employment identity theft, and if properly administered, it will also prevent an adult from using a child's birth date to get it through the system, even if he has the child's total identity. Arizona's experience seems to indicate that the use of E-Verify can make a contribution towards preventing employment-related identity theft. Following the enactment of Arizona's strong E-Verify requirement in 2007, employment-related identity theft has declined by 36%. Identity theft cases still continue to be reported from thefts that occurred prior to the implementation of E-Verify, and unfortunately, not all employers are complying with the law, which leads to new cases. And also, the numbers of Arizona children continue to be used in other states that do not mandate E-Verify. Therefore, a mandatory nationwide E-Verify program with a strong employer sanctions would protect the futures of American children, both the born and the unborn. Ideally, employers would be allowed to use E-Verify to check the status of all current employees as well as new hires in order to identify individuals who are currently using children's Social Security numbers. In addition, victims of employment-related identity theft should be allowed to sue employers for damages if employers fail to comply with the mandatory E-Verify requirement. In conclusion, the mandatory use of E-Verify is a child protection measure that can play a key role in defending our children's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mortensen.
But to move this to a modern version of 2012 where we can use an electronic base is a wise and prudent thing to do. And I would add to that and ask the question then of Mr. Mortensen, but isn't the next generation of E-Verify, and you know that I want the IRS to be involved in this as well and provide that kind of incentive, but isn't the next generation of E-Verify to take the problems that we have of identity theft and the value of those Social Security numbers that you testified about and to take some of that away by either using it tied to a bio-identification or a picture ID, Mr. Mortensen?
Yes, it's important to get beyond simply the fact of the paper documents and not really knowing the person who presents those documents, because as been noted, if I take well, you're a little young maybe, but if I take your name and birth date and Social Security number, I can probably get through E-Verify unless the employer questions why the age discrepancy maybe. But if we go to a biometric or with a photo ID system or some way that they can pull up, if they could pull up your photo and compare it to my photo, then E-Verify would throw that out.
And that's I appreciate that response. And I would just remark that in this room earlier this morning we had the video demonstration of how an individual walked in and could have been what was offered the ballot of our Attorney General Eric Holder without a picture ID as well. So I'd tie these two things together. Thank the chairman. Yield back the balance of my time.